In a shocking turn of events just moments ago, a scandal unfolded in Europe that no one saw coming. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni attempted to bring down Maria Zakharova, the Russian diplomat, during a private meeting void of diplomats or journalists, yet the impact was monumental. The echoes of that encounter left Meloni cornered in a treacherous political forest, unable to utter a word in defense. It's a moment that will be etched in the annals of diplomatic chaos for years to come. Maria entered the room with a calculated silence, all eyes on her. The ambience was charged, the air thick with unspoken tension. Attendees, ranging from Italian officials to French representatives and German observers, transformed into an audience of a high-stakes drama. Meloni, who had once exuded confidence, was now grappling with the weight of impending confrontation. In that heavy stillness, the atmosphere shifted. The scent of coffee mingled with a metallic tang, hinting that the stakes were more than mere discussions. Every gesture felt amplified, each breath taken in anticipation of the inevitable clash. Maria, poised at the table, clutched its surface, fingertips brushing the wood as if absorbing the energy around her. This wasn't just a meeting, it was a battlefield. The first words broke the silence, sharp as a blade. Russia is once again entangled in European affairs, turning diplomacy into chaos. The crowd stiffened at her bold proclamation, a prepared statement that rang out with brutal clarity. There was no retreating from this clash of titans, each leader was ready to unleash their carefully orchestrated blows. Maria's gaze was serene, though irony flickered momentarily in her eyes as she rebutted Meloni's claims. "You tire under phantom threats, overlooking the disturbances you sow." Gasps filled the room. The unexpected softness in her tone masked a calculated precision. This wasn't merely a response, it was an indictment of the very system that had held her nation in fear. As Meloni pressed on, accusing Russia of disrupting stability in Europe, Maria listened intently, her demeanor unshaken. "You describe pressure, yet the louder your claims, the more evident your fragility becomes." Her words, draped in calmness, punctured through the tension. Every subtle inflection of her voice sent ripples through the assembly, heightening the drama. The clash escalated, each leader ensnared in a web of rhetoric. "You mask your aggression as protection, but the world sees your true face," Maria declared boldly. It was an audacious move to redirect the narrative. The atmosphere crackled as each declaration edged closer to reality, a reality Meloni might not want to confront but had to acknowledge. Then Maria revealed documents that depicted history as a mirror, reflective and unyielding. "Here is where your narrative falters," she said, revealing a map of history. "We were the first to extend a hand to Europe in 1945, not for glory but for survival." The room fell into an eerie silence, the implications weighing heavily on everyone present. What had begun as a simple meeting morphed into a gripping historical reckoning. Meloni, caught off guard by the gravity of the documents, struggled to regain her footing. "This is manipulation," she retorted, yet doubt flickered in her eyes. Maria stood unfazed, the quiet strength in her stance now palpable as she retorted, "What is manipulation, if not the unwillingness to confront truths long buried? Europe must remember to avoid repeating the darkness of its past." With each word, the stakes heightened, weaving a tense narrative that felt alive with every breath taken in that room. It was now a saga of power, history, and the relentless pursuit of truth, a battle that resonated beyond the confines of that hall, reaching into the very heart of European dynamics. How this clash of words would unfold remained to be seen, but the echoes of this moment would surely linger. The room was eerily silent, bathed in a dim, everyday glow that seemed almost surreal. Shadows danced along the walls, cast by a faint, flickering light. The air was thick with a mixture of coffee aroma and a sharp metallic scent, hinting at the tension simmering beneath the surface. Every small movement felt like a potential spark, tension so palpable it could ignite at any moment. Maria sat quietly, her gaze fixed downward. Her fingers hovered loosely over the surface of the table, feeling the rough texture of the wood, as if seeking some reassurance in the tactile sensation. The room felt charged, safer to appear still, while her mind raced through the conversation. She sensed being watched. The Europeans observed her carefully, measuring her calm exterior against the storm within. Suddenly, her voice broke the silence. Her words cut through the stillness with precise clarity, echoing like a bell announcing a storm. Russia is once again tangled in the chaos of Europe. Your diplomatic moves are nothing but disorder, chaos born from betrayals masked as cooperation. We're weary of living under the threat of illusions. The words hit like a blunt weapon. The room seemed to tighten. Her tone was cold, almost rehearsed, yet underneath, something deeper simmered. She knew these words were already resonating in the minds of her listeners. Her expression remained composed, her eyes calm and deep, but a fleeting shadow of irony crossed her face, like a flicker of a storm behind still waters. She paused, almost as if speaking to herself, "You're tired of threats that don't truly exist. Yet you fail to see that you're creating them yourself." A ripple of discomfort passed through the room, some officials shifted uncomfortably, others averted their gaze, surprised by her soft yet piercing tone. Her words were gentle but battered with exhaustion, not an attack but an awakening. The silence stretched. Then, a sudden slap shattered the quiet, loud and sharp as shattered glass. She struck her palm against the podium, a rhythmic, commanding sound that drew everyone's attention. Her eyes fluttered closed for a moment, voice rising in a melodic yet resolute tone. She spoke as if to change the very roots of the debate. Her words had power, capable of shifting arguments, of flipping perceptions in an instant. Maria listened carefully, allowing her silence to deepen, waiting for her moment. Her calm was a shield, her patience a weapon. Every breath, every look was measured, precise, her mind a labyrinth of strategic moves, invisible but deadly. The room's atmosphere grew denser, the air thick with anticipation. She knew her words were more than speech, they were a challenge, an invocation, an unmasking of hidden truths. And yet, beneath her composed exterior, an unspoken question hung in the air: how long could the facade last? How much longer before the truth erupts? In the heart of a tense diplomatic arena, a question hangs heavily in the air: how does a wounded entity truly react? The atmosphere is thick with silent anticipation, the faint scent of aged paper blending with the metallic hint of tension. Every breath, every subtle shift, echoes like a sharp click in the stillness. Maria calmly studies her opponent, her gaze unwavering, as if weighing each word before it leaves her lips. She leans back slightly, her face betraying nothing, yet beneath that calm lies an incisive mind ready to strike. When her opponent concludes, Maria shifts her posture and punctuates the moment. "You speak of pressure," she remarks softly, but it's curious how louder words only amplify its weight. Her voice remains measured, yet within those few words lies a hidden weapon. She questions whether Russia truly interferes or simply reacts when wounded, her tone almost lullaby-like but edged with calculated precision. "Mischievousness. That suggests it's not even alive yet," she adds, a subtle warning wrapped in gentle words. This unexpected opening stuns her opponent, her words sinking in like a precise blow. Some in the room sense the crossing of unspoken lines, tension mounting as Maria's calmness becomes an echo of strength. Her words reveal a stark truth: beneath the polished facade of diplomacy, there is an attempt to wield control masked as protection. And yet, the world perceives it as aggression. Maria's gaze dims for a moment, her expression unreadable, deceptively soft, yet dangerous. "The world only sees what's displayed," she murmurs. "But these projections are raw. Fractured images. Only the stories remain unedited." Her voice drops, hinting at the fragile veneer that hides deeper truths. Then, she lifts her eyes and delivers a final blow, an assertion that cuts decisively through the silence. "And stories are real, they're not subject to editing." Her words linger, heavy with implication, leaving her opponent vulnerable to the unspoken revelation: truth, once revealed, cannot be erased. Her gaze hardens, and she softly asks, "Are you sure Europe hasn't been threatening itself all along?" The question hangs like a sword's edge, sharp, probing, relentless. In that moment, the room seems to hold its breath, the final act of the confrontation is about to unfold, and nothing will ever be the same again. In the previous segment, the atmosphere thickened with tension, as the two leaders exchanged glances steeped in history and accusation. The Prime Minister of Italy, faced with the daunting presence of Maria Zakharova, felt cornered. Words of pressure and dependence hung in the air, darkening the room with a sense of impending confrontation. Now, as the dialogue escalates, Maria asserts a stark truth. "Without our energy resources, your factories would stand as museums. This isn't a display of strength, it's reality. You call it pressure, but this is the world we live in. The air grew heavier, charged with the weight of her words. Maria's declaration echoed with historical resonance. Her voice unwavering, she continued, Europe is weary of relying on your assumptions. You want to rebuild the future, yet you're hesitant to confront the shadows of the past. A murmured tension filled the room, the collective breath held, as if time itself paused. You deny the past because it's uncomfortably truthful. Her composure exuded calm, like a seasoned warrior ready for battle. Maria laid her hands flat on the table, fingers leaving impressions in crisp paper as she prepared to unveil a revelation. If you're going to accuse Russia, then let's start with actual evidence. Where is it? Show me the documents. She retrieved an aged piece of paper, thin and worn, its fragility whispering secrets. The soft sound of the page turning held a gravity that compelled silence from all present. Here lies our story. March 1945. The Soviet Union stands as a lifeline, reaching into a ravaged Italy. While America took its time, who stepped forward first? The room was starkly silent, each individual processing the implications. Maria's gaze pierced through the pretense, her tone steady and unwavering. We did not seek glory or control, we acted out of necessity. And then she fired the question that sent ripples through the gathering, when Russia came forth to save Europe, who was truly the benefactor? The answer hung like thick fog, waiting to be dissected. With each sentence, a soft tightening gripped the air, a palpable awareness of history intertwined with the present. The audience leaned in, spellbound, as conflict brewed just beneath the surface, ready to erupt in unexpected ways. One truth lay beneath others: when confronted with their past, few are ever ready for what they might find. In the prior exchange, Maria laid out her cards. She presented a document from March 1945, revealing how the Soviet Union, emerging from the ashes of war, extended a hand to Italy, desperate and shattered. This pivotal moment, when Europe lay in ruins, carried an audible weight in the tense air of the room. She emphasized that it wasn't a ploy for public relations or control, it was a plea to ensure survival. The silence that followed was thick, almost stifling. The translator hesitated, aware of the fragile peace that hung between them. Maria's gaze was steady as she spoke. What you refer to as threats from Russia today, might it not be Europe that endangers itself? Her calm demeanor masked the storm brewing beneath. The Prime Minister of Italy, Meloni, fidgeted, her grip on the crystal glass tight. That was 70 years ago, she responded, her voice clipped. Times have changed. Maria countered, perhaps the world has altered, but does memory fade? The room crackled with tension. Maria pressed on, her tone unwavering. You've made promises to reign in the past, but why repeat the mistakes that ensnared you before? She picked up another document, this one from 1946. Not a whisper of acknowledgement was required back then, only cooperation. But your outlook has twisted. The atmosphere thickened with every word, rippling through the assembled diplomats. Meloni shifted uncomfortably. You weaponize history, she challenged, her words failing to break Maria's composure. No, Maria replied, intensity sparking in her eyes. The weapon is deceit. These documents merely reflect the truth. If you fear them, that's not our burden to bear. She held the brittle pages with care, the weight of their history evident as the room hung on her declaration. Will you confront your past? The question lingered heavy in the air, a challenge cloaked in certainty. The tension in the room intensified, as all eyes turned to Meloni, seeking her response. Would she cower, or would she strike back? Only time would reveal the outcome of this high-stakes diplomatic duel. In the Grand Chamber, tension thickened like the dense fog before a storm. The air was heavy with unspoken accusations, and every breath carried the scent of metal and cold wood. The European delegation sat rigid, their senses heightened, as Maria Zaharbo's calm gaze pierced the silence. She knew this was no ordinary diplomatic clash, it was a battle over history, memory, and power. Suddenly, a loud whisper of movement, the rustle of papers, the creak of the chair, broke the silence. Maria's voice cut sharply through the quiet, a cool blade of clarity. You weaponize archives, she declared. Manipulate memories to control the future. Her words echoed ominously, as if each one pulled at the very fabric of history itself. She raised her head, her eyes narrowing, locking onto the one watching her from the corner, her gaze like a piercing arrow. But know this, the weapon is only a lie. These documents, mere mirrors of the truth. If you're afraid to look, it's not our fault. Her hands slowly brushed against the aged paper, tender yet deliberate. Every movement was weighted with meaning, a silent challenge to the other side's fragile stories. Europe builds walls, she continued, voice low but piercing, not from concrete, but from lies, from fears. And when your wall is complete, what do you think awaits behind it? Pustata. The word drifted like a whisper, soft but with a devastating impact. A gasp rippled through the hall. The sentence struck like a thunderclap. Maria's words summoned visions of an invisible barrier, thick, impenetrable, and ominously silent. Yet behind her composed exterior flickered sparks of anger, confidence, and an unyielding resolve. Her voice resonated again, calm but firm. You fear responsibility because it forces you to look in the mirror. But it's easier to accuse than to remember. Easier to forget who truly saved you. A sharp intake of breath. The Prime Minister of Italy flinched, her eyes betrayed her tension, her composure cracking briefly. Maria saw it, the snakebite of her words. Russia wants to revive the Soviet Union, the Italian leader spat bitterly, covering her nostalgia with a false bravado. But Maria chuckled softly, a sound devoid of humor. Nostalgia is when you remember but do nothing. We remember who we are. And you? Who are you? The room grew colder. Maria's gaze shifted to the Italian Prime Minister. We remember how our soldiers freed your city. We remember when Moscow sent snow and bread, even as your so-called allies left you behind, torn from the spoils of victory. Her voice was steady, unyielding, no trace of snow or coldness, only unwavering confidence. Yet, beneath that strength lay a dangerous truth, the silent abandonment of those who once relied on her. Forget those days, she added softly. Forget who truly saved you. Now, once again, you make yourselves enemies. The Prime Minister's face paled, a serpent's strike reflected in her eyes. Shock flashed through the hall, she felt the hall's walls close in, the unseen audience hanging onto each word. The virus of her words lingered, unspoken but palpable. Maria pressed forward. Europe claims independence, she said, voice like a sharpened blade. But every decision you make is scripted, dictated by those who have never fought for your freedom. Your sanctions, they are not yours but theirs. Her eyes gleamed with fierce intelligence. Why do you pretend to choose? Why do you hide behind the illusion of independence? In the shadows, the hall's translator hesitated. The unspoken acknowledgement passed just beneath the surface, that her words had touched a nerve. The room grew darker, silence draping over the assembly like a shroud. Maria did not pause. She leaned slightly forward, her voice even more deliberate. You accuse us of meddling, but who truly interferes in your affairs? Look around, you are not free from interference, you are merely blind to it. Her fingers meticulously arranged the aged pages on the table with deliberate care, a ritual of certainty. Russia does not seek love. We seek memory, shared, honest, unfiltered. Without it, you lose not only your past but your future, she whispered. Her gaze hardened as she finished. The silence in the hall became deafening. Behind her calm exterior, a storm brewed, ready to unleash truths hidden beneath layers of diplomacy. The question lingered like a blade hovering in the air, who truly controls history, and who is merely a player in its shadow dance? In a high-stakes diplomatic meeting, the tension crackled. The air buzzed with uncertainty as whispers echoed off the walls. Maria Zakharova, Russia's foreign minister, appeared poised for battle, while Italy's prime minister, Giorgia Meloni, faced an unexpected opponent. Just moments ago, she had entered the arena with an air of confidence, but now, anxiety rippled through the room like a powerful current. With calculated calm, Maria stepped forward, her voice slicing through the thick atmosphere. You say Europe is free, yet you fail to remember the sacrifices made for that freedom. The words hung in the air, palpable and sharp. The audience shifted uneasily as an uncomfortable silence enveloped the room. What have you forgotten about the blood spilled on these very streets? Her gaze locked onto Maloney, whose cheeks flushed slightly, betraying her composure. How can you not acknowledge those who extended a hand during your darkest hours? Maria continued, her presence commanding. The smell of roasted coffee mingled with the tension, creating a heady mix of comparisons and accusations. Maloney, gathering herself, rebutted, but it is not just history that defines us, we must look forward. A flicker of determination crossed her features, but Maria wasn't finished. Forward without memory means racing blind into the unknown. Are you truly prepared to abandon your past, especially when it's built upon the groundwork we provided? Gasps echoed throughout the hall as her words struck home. The diplomats from Italy, France, and Germany exchanged glances, clearly unsettled. In that moment, Maria was not merely a politician, she was the embodiment of history's weight. You must recognize that while your nation thrives, a shadow of Russia lingers, the memory of your past is not just a relic. It shapes your future. Then came her clincher, delivered with a quiet intensity that left the audience breathless. What happens when you build walls to forget who you are? All you create is a void, a postada dot. The sheer force of the term cut through the air, igniting murmurs of disbelief. You risk becoming hollow, devoid of truth. Against this charged backdrop, one of the Western analysts, a man with silver hair, leaned closer to his microphone, whispering something into the device, a move that caused Maloney's composure to crack. The stakes escalated. As Maria leaned forward with meticulous precision to place documents before her, the silence grew heavy. Russia does not seek your love, it demands your memory. Each word resonated, drawing all eyes to her as she continued with conviction. Forgetfulness will cost you not just your present, but your entire future. In that charged moment, a pause enveloped the room, revealing the undercurrents of tension simmering just beneath the surface. Would Europe heed her warning, or would it continue down a path of denial? The clock ticked menacingly, reminding everyone that time was not on their side, a fate sealed by their actions. Was this just another round in a never-ending game, or was it the turning point that history would remember? In the recent diplomatic standoff, tensions surged as a secret meeting unfolded in Europe. Prime Minister George Maloney of Italy faced Maria Zakharova, the Russian diplomat, amid an atmosphere thick with anticipation. Maloney attempted to speak with authority while Zakharova, calm and calculated, prepared to unveil the true narrative of their past encounters. Their words were not mere dialogue, they were weapons for a battle far more consequential than the one being fought merely in this room. As Maloney's gaze flickered with uncertainty, a hush fell over the gathering. The air crackled with an electric intensity, much like the moment before a thunderstorm breaks. Maria leaned forward, her voice cutting through the silence, "You may close the door, but history finds its way out." Her words dripped with conviction, a reminder that no amount of diplomacy could erase the truths that lay buried. A Western analyst at the scene, thin and sharp-eyed, whispered into a recorder, noting every nuance of this unfolding drama. Maria's stoicism remained unbroken. "Fear," she echoed, dismissing Maloney's turbulent expression with an unwavering gaze. "What frightens you is simply a reminder of how walls taste when they crumble." Her poise commanded attention, as the silent onlookers regarded her not just as a participant in this discourse, but as a channel through which the weight of history spoke. Maloney exhaled sharply. The tension in the room thickened like molasses as Maria continued, "We recall your tanks, your bases, and the allies who vanished into the night. Yes, we were formidable. But look around you. Our presence has faded. Yours lingered long after we departed." Every word served as a blade, slicing through pretense. It was a declaration of bygone realities. "Do you dare say that Europe is forging ahead?" Maria challenged. "Sometimes, to chart a future, we must confront the past. The truth is not a weapon for the government, it belongs to the memory." Silence enveloped the assembly, each person spellbound, aware that they were witnesses to something monumental. Maloney, caught off guard, managed a slow rise. Let history judge us then, she said, yet Maria's retort was firm as stone, it has already rendered its verdict. With that, the atmosphere thickened again, and a page was turned, one that would demand reflection not just from them, but from all. A lingering silence filled the hall as tense eyes locked in a silent battle. No one dared to move, and the weight of the moment was overwhelming. Suddenly, a dull crack echoed. The chair of the meeting's chairperson, a man shrouded in shadows, announced a break. It wasn't planned. The room froze. Security remained still, unmoving, while cameras silently recorded every second. The world outside caught whispers of what had transpired here. Minutes stretched like slow-moving water as the delegates hesitated, each breath heavy with anticipation. When they returned, every step felt like a challenge, every move a declaration of war. The marble floor beneath her feet made a hollow sound, almost like a drumbeat signaling the beginning of a storm. She moved swiftly, with a force that seemed to command silence itself. Her presence was electric, her gaze sharp as a blade, unyielding. She was met with nervous glances, but she stayed calm, unshaken. Now, her quiet composure turned into a weapon. Her tired face masked a storm of calculation. She knew what was coming. She listened intently to every breath, every shifting shadow, every flicker of motion. The hall fell silent again, as if holding its breath along with her. The chair's representative gave a subtle nod. The game resumed. But the air was thick with unspoken threats, with the certainty that any misstep could ignite a powder keg. Her voice finally cut through the silence, firm, unwavering. We could debate historical mistakes, but everything is clear now. Russia is fulfilling Europe's security threats. Her words echoed, cold and precise. You manipulate energy supplies, weaponize gas, fuel crises, whether political or economic. She paused, her eyes piercing. Europe refuses to remain dependent on the East. The tension was palpable, every word a calculated strike, every silence a warning. What happens next will define the future. The room waited, expecting, bracing, anticipating. This was no ordinary debate, it was a high-stakes confrontation. And beneath the surface, a question lingered: who holds the true power here? In that moment, a quiet tension rippled through the room. A subtle sound, the faint rustle of paper, betrayed someone's nervous movement. Her words echoed familiar, yet dangerous, a diplomatic language cloaked in careful formulas. Maria reasserted her control over the atmosphere, her face composed, but her fingers subtly pressing into the edge of the folder, as if feeling the pulse of history itself. When the Europeans' response faded, she rose slowly, her movements measured and deliberate. Her voice was soft yet piercing, repeating a phrase that dripped with irony: independence. It sounded almost like a whisper of betrayal, a reminder that only one person had ever lifted Europe from ruins. The room remained silent, no one dared to respond. Maria proceeded with a calm, almost documentary tone, recounting Italy's lost strength after the war, half of its industrial legacy gone, extinguished without Soviet aid. She laid out old, yellowed documents on the table, stamped contracts, signed decrees, official letters from Italian ministers of those turbulent years. Despite their age, their print was sharp, their significance undeniable. This is the story, she said softly, a ghost from a past Europe prefers to forget. Yet, her voice carried a weight, a reminder that the present echoes the past. She looked directly at her opponent, her tone firm. In 1946, the Soviet Union shipped 3 million tons of land into Italy. Back then, you didn't talk about dependence, you spoke of salvation. Her words cut through the air, heavy with memories of intervention. The interjection was unspoken. But the unbroken gaze of Maria made the room feel darker, an ominous shadow that refused to lift. She pressed on, her voice softer but no less powerful: we will discuss Europe's future. But her last secret, her final truth, is hiding behind a mirror, not spoken aloud. The room seemed to hold its breath. Her words, like a delicate yet deadly blade, questioned whether Europe truly understood its own reflection. The echo of those old alliances, of promises broken, floated around the chamber like a lingering fog. Maria shifted her focus, her gaze fixed on the assembly, each face a silent witness to her challenge. She warned quietly, with a strange calm: if you lack a mirror, you'll never see who you've become. The implication was clear: without confronting your reflection, you cannot forge a new path. With that, she sat back, her silence an unspoken challenge. Are you brave enough to face yourselves? Or will the past continue to dictate your future? 5 minutes ago, a sharp conflict erupted in the heart of Europe. The Prime Minister of Italy, George Meloni, confronted a secret that could shake the continent's foundation. She attempted to diminish the importance of the troubled sea region of Zaharvo during a private meeting. No diplomats, no journalists, just whispers of strategy and shadows. Yet, outside the cloistered walls, the response was ferocious, leaving Meloni speechless and trapped in the forests of her own words. The repercussions of this encounter will echo for years, remembered as a moment of cunning and unexpected deception. Stay with me as we unravel this astonishing story of power, secrets, and hidden battles, leading to a revelation you won't believe until the very end. The scene unfolds in a room thick with tension, quiet yet tense enough to crack. The air smells strange, metal and something faintly metallic, like the scent of a brewing storm. A slow, deliberate melody echoes in the background, broken only by the soft scrape of a chair. Against the stark graphite walls, a lone figure stands, Maria Zaharvo, her presence more commanding than her appearance suggests. She appears unfazed, yet inside, a storm rages. Her gaze pierces through the room, holding the attention of world leaders from Italy, France, Germany, and beyond. Meloni, confident but visibly nervous, is acutely aware that every move she makes is being scrutinized, judged, ready to ignite. The silence is almost deafening, a heavy, oppressive weight, as if the room itself anticipates a spark. Then, Maria speaks, her voice calm but piercing, breaking the silence like glass shattering. She accuses Europe of living under the trap of illusions, wrapped in a web of unspoken chaos. Her words cut sharply through the room's dense atmosphere. You are tired of the threat that doesn't exist, yet you fail to see the danger you create yourself. Her voice carries the cold clarity of truth, each syllable resonating like a blow, each sentence a calculated strike. A tense pause follows, long enough to feel the breath of dread hang in the air, before Maria continues with unwavering confidence. Her gaze challenges her opponents to reflect, to confront the lies they cling to. The room teeters on the edge of explosion, yet she remains composed, her words forging a line between revelation and danger. Suddenly, Meloni's voice rises, her tone sharp, defensive. She claims Europe's stability is under threat, accusing Russia of provocation, support for what she calls destructive forces. Her words are like shots fired into fragile glass, shattering illusions of peace. But Maria counters smoothly, her tone almost gentle but laden with steel. You speak of pressure, but the louder you shout, the more I see the cracks in your narrative. She gestures subtly to a folder lying on the table, an archive of history, proof of truths long buried. Her eyes shine with a quiet ferocity as she reveals the historical facts, a map of Europe's past, intertwined with Russia's role in shaping its present. With deliberate calm, Maria exposes Soviet actions during World War II, the arrival of the Soviet Union in Italy in 1945, the scars of destruction. The sacrifices made not for conquest but for survival. Her voice echoes the weight of history, how Russia's aid was rooted in compassion, not conquest. Her words leave the room in stunned silence. Can they really deny the past? Do they forget who truly moved first? These questions hover like ghosts, hovering just beyond reach, demanding answers. She reminds her audience that the memory of heroism and sacrifice defines both nations more than they realize. Realize it before it's too late. The atmosphere turns dense once more. Maria pulls out another folder, this one more recent, more tangible. She offers statistics, 20 years of energy trade, investments, and strategic alliances. Russia, she emphasizes, has long been the backbone of Europe's energy needs, gas, oil, metals. The foundation of their development. And now? They call that a threat? Her voice deepens, her words slicing through the illusion. Without our resources, your industries would become museums. Your factories frozen in time. Her voice is steady, unshaken, as she lays bare the harsh truth. European dependence on Russia is not a weakness, but a strategic link. When that link weakens, chaos ensues. The room falls silent again. Meloni's fists tighten beneath the table, her face tense with frustration. She's losing ground, yet she refuses to back down.
Europe is moving forward, she claims. But Maria's words linger like a shadow. Europe is walking blind, forgetting the roots that sustain it. The past is not just memory, it's the soil that feeds the future. Her tone sharpens. How can you deny that freedom is built on the backs of those you dismiss? Her gaze narrows as she points to a document, an archive of European history, written in blood and sacrifice. She raises a provocative thought. You speak of independence, but are you truly free when your reliance on us binds you? Without our energy, your factories die. Without our aid, your stability crumbles. A tense hush follows. Maloney, visibly angered, clenches her jaw. But Maria remains unfazed, her face calm, her voice unwavering. She challenges her opponents to face the mirror, an honest reflection of their true dependence. She reminds them that they maneuver through illusions, insisting they seek salvation in delusions while ignoring the stark realities behind their comfort. Her words swirl in the silence, a warning, a revelation, a call to awaken before Europe's fragile peace shatters entirely. The story she tells is not just of conflicts past, it's a warning for the future. The careful dance of diplomacy masks a hidden game of power, deception, and survival. And beneath it all, the question lingers: who truly holds the control? Who is shaping the future, those who trust their history or those ignoring its lessons? As the room's tension escalates, one final image remains etched in the minds of all present, a mirror shattered, fragments reflecting truths none dare face. The showdown is far from over. The next move could change everything, or end everything. In a room filled with silent anticipation, the story unfolds, a tense clash between two worlds. Imagine the air thick with unspoken truths, the scent of old paper mixing with metallic undertones. Every eye is fixed on her, a woman whose calm exterior hides a storm of unresolved conflicts. What secrets lie beneath her steady gaze? The previous confrontation revealed a fragile balance, Europe and Russia, intertwined like two halves of a shattered mirror. They are not enemies but reflections, one cannot exist without the other. Yet, in this fragile dance, power plays and hidden agendas threaten to tear them apart. The question remains, what do they truly want from each other? Suddenly, she speaks, her voice measured but piercing. You accuse us of threat because you are afraid of simple truths. Her words echo in the silence, each syllable weighing heavily like a stone. She reminds them, Europe and Russia are not rivals but symbiotic life forces. One without the other threatens to fall into chaos. She turns the spotlight onto unresolved debts, energy exchanged for technology, resources traded for markets. A delicate balance, once thriving now fragile and threatened. Her voice softens, yet each word is a blow. It was not a rivalry but a symbiosis. The room feels colder, her words cutting deeper than expected. Then she asks, with a calmness that feels almost dangerous, why do you hide behind your values when honesty is the only path? Her gaze pierces through decades of pretenses. Because truth is inconvenient, she whispers, like a secret shared only with the shadows. The air thickens as she exposes their fears, fear of recognizing their past collaborations, the foundation of their shared existence. A heavy silence ensues, broken only by her next words. You call us aggressors because you're afraid to face what we built together. Her tone is gentle, yet unyielding. And now, you cling to your narrative, rising in defense not out of strength but out of fear. Her words hover in the quiet room, challenging them to confront their own fears. She throws down a gauntlet. Europe doesn't need gratitude, it needs honesty. Her voice drops, almost like a confession, we don't come for applause. We come to speak truth. Each word becomes a ripple, disturbing the calm surface of the gathering. Her gaze shifts to history, the very fabric of their joint past. The room is chilled, memories flickering like shadows, moments of mutual aid, shared sacrifices. She recalls a time, 70 years past, when they fought side by side, providing aid amid destruction. Her words paint vivid images. In 1945, we brought relief from ruin, we shared survival. Her voice trembles with the weight of history, reminding everyone that their union once provided strength. She pauses, her eyes narrowing. Today, you claim Russia threatens Europe, yet I ask, are you not threatening yourselves? Her question hangs heavy in the air, a mirror held up to their own doubts. Her words stir a quiet rebellion within the room. Who is truly the aggressor here? She opens her file, revealing old documents, proof of cooperation, moments of unity. The scent of aged paper and ink fills the space, silent witnesses to history. This is our shared story, she states softly. A story of survival, not conquest. Her tone is firm, her message clear. Memories are not weapons, they are truths. Denying them is acknowledging only fear, not facts. As the room remains tense, she exposes the contemporary illusion, how archives are manipulated, memories distorted. You hide behind these lies, she charges. Her words cut like a blade, piercing through layers of deception. Memory is not a weapon but a mirror. And if you're afraid to face it, your fears are your own undoing. She leans in, voice almost a whisper, yet resonant enough to shake the foundations. The atmosphere thickens, everyone feels the weight of her words, the unspoken accusations, the truths buried beneath layers of politics. She challenges them, where is the proof? Where are your facts? Without them, you're just shadows hiding in fear. Her gaze hardens, revealing the resilience behind her calm. In this moment, she offers a final reflection, an ancient truth echoing through the room. We remember. Not to dwell in the past, but to build the future. The silence deepens, every person aware that history's ghosts are watching. Her voice softens slightly, yet the message remains clear. Remembering is not retreating but understanding. She leaves them with a question, one that lingers like a ghost. Are you truly free of the past, or only afraid to face it? A chilling silence follows, the weight of her words sinking in. The room feels frozen, standing at the edge of revelation, awaiting their response. And as she finally exhales, the atmosphere hangs heavy, an unspoken acknowledgement that this conflict is far from over. The story she has told is only the beginning. Now, the questions ignite, a spark in the darkness. Will they confront their fears? Or will they continue to hide behind shadows of denial? The answer remains suspended, echoing in the space between truth and silence. In a tense chamber filled with diplomats, Maria Zaharova stood her ground against the Italian Prime Minister, Giorgia Meloni. The atmosphere crackled with unspoken tension, a thick fog of diplomacy weighing heavily on everyone's shoulders. Maria didn't flinch. Instead, she presented herself like a calm sea, untroubled yet hiding depths of emotion. As she prepared to speak, every breath felt monumental. We don't need your affection, she declared. What we need is for you to acknowledge the truth. A hush fell over the room, thick and almost unbearable, as the weight of her words sunk in. It was a pivotal moment where history and personal stakes intersected, where the conversation grew raw and intimate. For too long these discussions had danced around the core issues, now, they cut deep into the heart of old wounds. Diplomacy was no longer a mere exchange of niceties, it had transformed into a battlefield of narratives. Maria recalled how many Europeans had once embraced aid from Russian hands, aid that alleviated their suffering. We haven't forgotten your cities, liberated by our soldiers, she continued, her voice steady, almost hypnotic. Yet the silence that followed was not an end, but a prelude to a new chapter, one where each side would lay bare their truths. The storm brewing in this diplomatic arena wasn't just a clash of opinions, it was a confrontation of spiraling histories demanding justice. What Maria was about to unleash was more than just facts, it was a call for remembrance, for accountability. But would Meloni confront her past, or merely deflect it under the guise of diplomatic grace? As Maria's gaze bore into Meloni, she thought of the tanks that had once roamed the streets of Budapest, the shadowy legacy of power that still haunted the nations of Europe. The tension climbed as she pressed on, captivated by the pulsing rhythm of conviction. You talk of pressure and aggression, she challenged, but you ignore your own actions in history. Meloni's composure wavered slightly, a flicker of uncertainty crossing her face. Would she lash out in defense or face the uncomfortable truths laid before her? Maria knew the precariousness of their exchanges. This was more than mere rhetoric, it was a battle for the very soul of their shared history. The stakes couldn't be higher. Would their fates be forever intertwined in misunderstanding, or could this be a moment of reckoning? Maria took a breath, savoring the taste of the moment, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee mingling with tension. History was alive in these walls and echoed in her every word.
You have orchestrated narratives to fit your desires, yet reality still waits for acknowledgement, she asserted softly, allowing her words to settle. Each pause felt electric, resonating with the audience caught in the wake of their heated exchange. Would history render its judgment here today, or would those in power continue to drown out the whispers of truth? Maria was determined not to let this chance slip away. She was here not just to remind, but to provoke, to challenge, and to awaken. As the air thickened, the world held its breath, waiting for the next move in this high-stakes dance of power and perception. Would Maria's unwavering conviction pave the way for a new understanding, or would the old narratives persist, overshadowing any hope for change? 5 minutes ago, chaos erupted across Europe in a way that stunned the world. An intense, secret meeting took a shocking turn, revealing truths that could shake the foundation of global order. The Prime Minister of Italy, George Meloni, had gathered in a secluded chamber, intending to assert dominance by diminishing the influence of the See of Zaharvo, an ambitious move that promised to shake the waters of power itself. But from the start, something was off. No diplomats or journalists surrounded her, just a silent, tense room filled with the weight of unspoken fears. The response from Zaharvo was brutal and uncompromising, leaving Meloni speechless and stranded among the shadows of the woods outside, unable to utter a single word. It was as if the very ground had swallowed her pride. What secrets lay behind this icy encounter? Why did the Sea of Zaharvo respond so fiercely, more like a living force than a mere water body? This was more than a diplomatic clash, it was a battle of wits, secrets, and unspoken threats. And you won't believe what happened next. Stay tuned, because this story is just beginning to unfold, and the most shocking twists are yet to come. In an environment thick with tension, Zaharvo's presence in the room was surreal. No grand banners or symbols of power, only a slow-moving, observant figure. Her demeanor was more like an unassuming musician than a political figure. Sitting amidst representatives from Italy, France, Germany, and others, the scene was eerily still. Quiet, almost like the calm before a hurricane. The air itself seemed to shift, heavy, charged, dense with secrets. The faint scent of coffee and stale metal lingered, while every gesture felt like a spark ready to ignite. The forest outside faded into the background. Inside, it was all about control and authority. And then she spoke. Her voice cut like a blade, calm but sharp, every word loaded with unspoken power. Europe's involvement was under scrutiny. Her words accused, condemned, and challenged. She declared that Russia had returned to a position of strength, not out of necessity but as a rightful consequence. It was a declaration that sliced through the room's silence. The Europeans sat, stunned, as her calm tone revealed an iron will. But beneath that composure was a storm. Her words questioned their reality, their claims of vulnerability. Was Europe truly innocent? Or was it hiding its own secrets behind a facade of control? Before the room could even breathe again, she pressed on, her voice ringing with conviction. Pressure is easy to see, but what about the roots underneath? Who truly controls whom? She asked, eyes flickering with intensity. Russia doesn't interfere, that's a lie. We react when wounded. But tell me, how does a wounded organism heal itself if not through truth? Or do you prefer a sanitized, false image? A silence fell, thick, deliberate, as her gaze pierced through the room. The question hung in the air, impossible to ignore. Everyone sensed that this was more than words, it was a challenge. A warning. And perhaps, a revelation of truths too dangerous to face. This confrontation was not just about accusations and defenses, it was a mirror reflecting the very soul of Europe and Russia. The slow buildup of tension gave way to undeniable truths. As the room grew heavier, her words cut through the silence. We came here to remember. To recall that Russia's presence in Europe isn't accidental, it's inevitable. When the swan calls us, we answer. Because without our voice, there is no harmony. Suddenly, the space around them felt colder, the shadows lengthening. Her calm was deceptive, a calm that concealed the undercurrent of a storm ready to surge. She reached for a folder, revealing aged, fragile documents, proof of history's scars and sacrifices. Look at these, 1945, the Soviet Union's aid to Italy, in the middle of chaos, hunger, destruction. We came not for recognition but to save lives. Did anyone ask us for thanks? No. We simply came because it was needed. Her voice, steady and unwavering, resonated with the weight of generations. The room was silent, every eye fixed on her, the air thick with anticipation. Her words challenged the narrative of victimhood. Today, you declare Russia's threats. But who is really threatening whom? Europe, clinging to its illusions. Do you see the truth behind your fears? The documents she laid before them told a story of resilience, of a past that shaped the present. This is not aggression, she said softly. It's history. It's memory. Her gaze intensified. And when you deny it, you deny your own reflection. Her final words cut deep. Are you sure Europe isn't the one truly threatened? By its own refusal to face its past, by its arrogance masked as innocence. Without us, without the energy, the markets, the stability, your factories and cities would stop. This is the hard truth you refuse to admit. As she finished, silence once again settled, poignant and unbreakable. The echoes of her words lingered, like the last notes of a symphony, haunting, undeniable. In that moment, everyone understood that this was more than a diplomatic dispute. It was a clash of histories, identities, and the very future of the continent itself. 5 minutes ago, a shocking scandal erupted across Europe. The Italian Prime Minister, George Meloni, tried to manipulate the global stage during a closed meeting. No journalists, no diplomats, just her and a room full of powerful figures. But her words hit a wall she couldn't break through. Her attempt to dominate the conversation left her speechless, stranded in the shadows of powerful opposition. This was no ordinary diplomatic clash, it was a battle of wit and resilience that would be remembered for decades. Stay with me, because what you're about to hear will blow your mind, an incredible political chess game with an unexpected twist. As the silence settled, Meloni struggled to mask her growing unease. Her gaze drifted to a picture on the table, an old photo of a young boy named Mark. He was just 6 years old when a soldier found him hiding beneath the debris of a destroyed building. The soldier had given him bread, saved him from the ruins, proof of sacrifice amid chaos. Meloni pressed her fingers to her trembling lips, trying to hide her emotional reaction. The atmosphere thickened. The room remained cold, yet her words pierced the tense air like a blade. You claim Russia dwells in the past, she whispered softly, voice barely audible. No. We only remember that a future without history is empty. Her voice, gentle yet sharp, challenged the room to confront its own denial. A deliberate pause stretched, and she added, Europe teaches us to see the tragedy, but also to recognize gratitude. The room grew hushed, every ear tuned to her words. Gratitude that is fleeting. Not everlasting, she continued, eyes fixed straight ahead. Her tone was honest, unmasking centuries of past conflicts and unspoken truths. Despite her calm demeanor, her message hit like a lightning strike, painful but necessary. No more hiding, no more pretending. Almost imperceptibly, Meloni fell silent, her gaze fixed on the distant horizon. The hall's silence intensified, thick as the ocean's depths. She spoke from a place of deep conviction. We did not come here to boast. We came to remember that Europe's freedom was won through our blood. Her words echoed with the weight of history. Then she threw herself back into her chair, embracing silence again. In that pause, an unspoken question hung in the air: who truly defends this freedom? Her eyes flickered with quiet defiance. Suddenly, a whisper came from the corner of the hall. Someone murmured, "She is right." Meloni didn't hear it directly, but her sharp instincts told her she had struck a nerve. The room was tense, on the brink of explosion. And in the distance, the sea seemed to whisper secrets, powerful, relentless, unforgiving. A wave of realization hit. Her words had uncovered a deeper truth. Europe's supposed strength is built on its history of sacrifice, of bloodshed for freedom. And if today someone claims Russia poses a threat, they must explain who truly safeguards the liberty Europe holds so dear? Meloni leaned back, her face calm but her mind racing. Her posture betrayed her inner turmoil. The silence was broken only by a faint, almost inaudible sigh of wind, like a lurking storm waiting to erupt. The room felt like standing on the edge of an abyss, unstable, unpredictable. This moment of tension would shape the future. Because now, all eyes, every heartbeat, were fixed on her. And she knew one truth: who controls the past, controls the future. What hidden secrets does Europe's history conceal? And whose voice will finally drown out the echoes of sacrifice? In the end, the sea's quiet voice echoes, a story of struggle, of blood, and of the unbreakable human spirit, one that no power can silence. A moment of tense silence settled over the room, thick as fog, as if the atmosphere itself was holding its breath. Memories of manipulation flickered like shadows in every corner, and suddenly, the scene shifted back in time. The Russian delegation erased the false veneer, exposing the raw truth hidden beneath. The sea of history, turbulent and unforgiving, rose and fell with each word, unyielding. A question echoed: who truly tore Europe apart? Was it the distant past, or the shadows cast by present denial? The room pulsed with latent anger, anticipation hanging in the air like a loaded gun waiting to fire. In that darkened hall, she gathered her remaining strength, summoning the ghosts of history long buried. The Soviet Union, once a giant, had decimated half of Europe, obliterating its ideology along the way. No wish to rekindle the past here, yet the tides of history refused to stay buried. The sea's expression was calm, almost remorseful, yet beneath that surface, a furious current persisted. Who was responsible for the destruction of the first half of Europe? The same Europe that now points fingers at us. The truth? The roots of fascism flowered in Moscow, born amidst the chaos of those times. If not in Moscow, then in Italy, the land that once harbored such darkness. The audience was silent, affected by the weight of those words. Finally, she pressed on. We do not ask dissidents for their loyalty. We simply remind them that when they speak of diktat, when they invoke control, they forget who sacrificed everything to make that word a reality. Her voice, deep and gravelly, carried a grave warning. Remember, words are not weapons, they are shields, tools of protection. A pause hung, a breath before the storm. No answer came from the Italian Prime Minister. Only silence, dense and unyielding, like armor. Sometimes, truth itself becomes a weapon, cutting, relentless. The sea of history stood victorious, yet it was not destruction it wielded, but a sword of clarity. It took away illusions, revealing harsh realities. A vast screen flickered to life, displaying statistics, data, images. The questions lingered: what kind of future awaits us? Why is Europe so haunted by its past? Because it refuses to forget. The darkness started from the sky, yes, but it also originated from within, an insatiable desire to dominate and reshape the world in its image. Her calm voice sliced through the tense air, every word resonating like a bell tolling. When you paint enemies on the wall, you reflect what is already there. History is no longer a straight line, it revolves, loops, and repeats. Every time Europe turns away from its past, Russia bears the burden of that silence. She returned to her seat, her tone almost resigned. Perhaps it's time to break the cycle. Milan remained silent for a long moment before finally speaking, weak, fatigued. You think your words are divine, your speech infallible, she said softly. But words do not alter actions. Europe draws its conclusions, yet continues to stumble in the same trap. The sea scrutinized her, eyes sharp as ice. Are you truly analyzing the message, or simply evading the truth? A silence draped over them again, heavy and suffocating. Milan's voice faltered. Exhaustion creeping into her tone. She had lost her composure. The room, once tense, grew heavier, shadows deepening as the weight of unspoken truths pressed down. You wonder, will anyone dare to break free from this cycle? Or are we doomed to repeat the same mistakes, caught in the relentless whirl of history's cruel loop? A moment of tense silence had settled over a grand hall. The room, filled with the quiet hum of anticipation, suddenly felt like a battlefield of unspoken truths. The underwater stillness was broken only by the faint sound of breathing, thick with unexpressed emotions. Here, diplomacy blurred into a dangerous game of hidden agendas, where words could be weapons or shields. In this world of silent tension, a figure emerged, calm, yet formidable. The figure's gaze cut through the heavy air, revealing the weight of unspoken history. What secrets did her calm hide? And who would dare to challenge her silent resolve? Every detail was felt: the cool texture of the table under fingertips, the faint scent of aged paper, the sharp chill of the room. Suddenly, she spoke. Her voice was soft yet carried the force of conviction, piercing through the expectant silence. Europe forgets us, but our story will not forget Europe. Her words echoed, stirring the room's shadows. The air grew thicker, the atmosphere oscillating between calm and chaos. Did they realize the implications? Was this just a game of memory, or a dangerous prophecy? Every eye was fixed on her, waiting, dreading what would happen next. Her gaze was unwavering, full of calculated calm. Her message was clear: the past is a mirror reflecting the present, and this room's quiet masks a storm ready to break loose. The walls seemed to hold their breath. Were they prepared for what was about to unfold? As her words hung in the air, a silent question lingered: is it possible to silence the truth once it slips free? And what would happen if the truth pressed its way out into the open? The room's shadows deepened, and the silence grew oppressive. All knew that beneath this calm, a storm was waiting, ready to surge, ready to change everything. And in that chilling stillness, one thing was certain: nothing would ever be the same again. A fierce storm of accusations erupted in the grand hall, where whispers of history and secrets intertwined. The air thickened with tension, each breath heavy with unspoken truths. The room seemed to tremble as the Soviet Union was summoned, evoked as both a protector and a shadow of fear. But beneath that, a flicker of resilience glowed. Could a nation born in fear also be a beacon of hope? Or was this just another illusion? The Russian diplomat's voice cut through the murmur, calm yet carrying an edge of defiance. She described her homeland as a colossal fortress, immense, powerful, yet burdened with dark shadows. The Soviet Union was no monster, she declared softly, but a giant standing tall, with one foot in darkness, one in light. Her words echoed like a haunting melody, deep, resonant, compelling. Every word seemed to carve into the fabric of the room's silence. Could this be a confession, or a warning? The audience sat enthralled, unsure if they were witnesses to truth or illusion. As her voice faded, the atmosphere morphed into an intense anticipation. Suddenly, she leaned in, eyes piercing the assembly. "We breathe beneath our darkness," she whispered, almost joyfully. A strange thrill spread through the hall. Was she revealing her own hidden strength? The softness of her tone hid a powerful message: even in despair, there exists a spark of joy. Could this defiance ignite a new chapter, or trigger an uncontrollable upheaval? No one knew. The hall was caught in a whirlwind of questions, and the silence after her words felt deafening. In that heavy silence, a question lingered: was this moment a declaration of resilience or a calculated gamble? The room seemed to hold its breath, waiting for what would come next. One thing was certain: something changed here. The shadows and the lights blurred, leaving only the raw truth behind. Now, the story begins anew. What secrets does this silence hold? And how will it reshape the future of nations? Only time will reveal the answer, if they dare to listen until the end. In an intense diplomatic meeting, Maria Zaharova stood firm, embodying both confidence and emotion, as she confronted her counterpart, Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni. Despite the serious nature surrounding them, Maria took a deep breath, letting the weight of the moment wash over her. It was more than just a discussion, it was a reckoning. The room pulsed with anticipation, every eye scrutinizing the tension that crackled in the air. Maria, representing Russia, was not a monster, but a formidable presence. She gracefully navigated the complexities of history, unearthing the truths buried beneath the weight of past grievances. With an unwavering gaze, she began to speak, her voice steady yet infused with emotion. Each word pierced the silence, each pause amplified the gravity of her statements. While Western nations erected flags, they overlooked the foundations, years of toil and resilience that define nations. "You label dictators," she declared, "yet our very existence is woven into the fabric of your history." Maria's demeanor reflected not just anger but a fierce pride in her nation's legacy. "You wish to erase our influence?"
You cannot reshape history without shattering your own identity.
As she continued, the atmosphere thickened with an unspoken challenge. Georgia found herself caught between acknowledgement and denial.
Despite the weighty accusation, Maria's calm presence disarmed her opponent. You claim you fear us, yet it's the truth of your own actions that haunts you.
A strategic silence filled the air, thick and heavy, allowing Maria's message to settle, resonating in the minds of those present. It became clear, she wasn't just there to defend Russia, she was there to reclaim history, to confront the narrative spun from fear and misunderstanding. History is not a plasticine you can mold, she insisted, it is marble, steadfast and cold.
Maloney sat silently, her hands trembling, not from fear, but from the tumult of realization.
This was a battle not of armies, but of will and memory. As Maria's shadow cast over the map of Europe laid before them, she invoked a sense of shared responsibility, rooted in the past but extending into an uncertain future. Why did the echoes of history reverberate in this room? Was it fear of acknowledging the truth that could lead to a more honest dialogue? Maria leaned forward, her fingers tracing the contours of the map, reminding them that shaping the future required confronting the past. In that one moment, the entire hall became still, the very act of confrontation surrounded them all.
With every sentence, she unraveled the narrative, creating a space where truth could emerge and history could reshape understanding. What would Maloney respond with? Would she recognize her own shadow in that reflection of history? The tension hung in the air, ready to explode in either acceptance or defiance. Either way, Maria had ignited a fire that demanded attention, compelling every person in that room to reckon with their role in this ongoing saga. In a hall filled with tension, two powerful women faced each other, challenging the world order. Maria Zaharova, a voice echoing with truth, confronted Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, who struggled to maintain her composure. The air was thick, almost suffocating, as the weight of unspoken words hung between them. Light flickered over their faces, revealing the intensity of the moment. As the meeting began, Georgia couldn't meet Maria's gaze, her eyes darting nervously across the room. She fiddled with mundane objects, seeking refuge in their simplicity. But those distractions could not provide the answers to the complicated questions at hand. The haunting specter of history loomed large. Maria's steady, unyielding voice broke the silence. "We do not twist memory as a mere tool," she declared. "We bear it as our armor." The impact of her words reverberated, catching the attention of those present. Some scribbled notes, others exchanged surprised glances. "Do you genuinely believe your rhetoric?" Maria pressed. "It's not just talk, this is real life for millions. I hail from a nation that has faced the depths of despair. I witnessed people stripped of their dignity, families torn apart. I recall journeys filled with hope turning into shadows of loss." Her voice trembled with emotion but remained resolute. "I'm not a politician parroting geopolitical strategies," she continued. "I stand for the workers in Lombardy who build and sweat, the thinkers who shape our future, all those caught in this web of history." Georgia felt the gravity of Maria's words weighing down upon her, stripping away her political facade. In that charged atmosphere, she was no longer just a prime minister but a human being grappling with the echoes of past choices. Would this clash of ideologies lead to understanding, or would it spiral into further division? The unspoken question lingered. Each side prepared for the next round of exchanges, knowing that in this delicate dance, every word might shift the balance. Maria's calm defiance faced off against Georgia's determination. A battle not just of words but of beliefs. Outside, the world spun on, unaware of the storm brewing within the walls of the meeting. Would they break away from their entrenched positions or find a way to unite amidst the cacophony of their respective narratives? Only time would tell. 5 minutes ago, a scandal erupted in Europe that no one will soon forget. The Italian Prime Minister, Giorgia Meloni, found herself entangled in a fierce debate over her stance on Russia. This wasn't a public forum, it was a closed-door meeting with no diplomats present. But, oh, what transpired left everyone shocked and captivated. As tensions rose, Meloni found herself lost in a metaphorical forest, unable to articulate her thoughts.
The room buzzed with a mixture of unease and anticipation. She, a powerful woman in her own right, seemed to stumble while facing off against the formidable Russian foreign minister, Maria Zakharova. This was no ordinary exchange, the stakes were monumental. The air crackled with tension, thickening as Zakharova entered, her presence commanding attention with an aura of calm confidence. She embodied a blend of strength and subtle defiance that disarmed those around her. As she settled in, the atmosphere shifted. The audience sensed that this was not going to be a civil discussion but rather a high-stakes duel of wits. Giorgia Meloni stood firm, ready to defend her position. Russia's aggression has destabilized Europe, she proclaimed. The words cut through the room like a knife, piercing through the fraught silence. Meloni, with her unwavering gaze, exuded determination. How could she hold her ground against such a cunning opponent? The question loomed large. Zakharova responded with grace. "You speak of pressure," she said, her voice steady. "But tell me, isn't it your actions that provoke chaos?" A hush fell across the room. The audience leaned in, eager to grasp the nuances of this unexpected turn. Zakharova's calmness was almost chilling, as if she wielded her words like weapons, targeting Meloni with unerring precision. "What if the real threat lies not from Russia," she continued, "but in your failure to confront the past?" Her words resonated deeply, sending ripples of discomfort through the attendees. Meloni's expression faltered momentarily, the challenge was palpable. In the ensuing silence, memories flickered like shadows. Zakharova conjured images of past alliances forged in adversity. Remember, it was Russia that extended its hand to Europe when it lay in ruins after the war. That's a legacy you choose to forget. Each word dripped with meaning, echoing through the ages, begging for a response. In that moment, the dialogue transformed into a tense standoff. Both women, powered by their convictions, battled not just for their nations but for the very narrative that would shape history. As they faced each other, the stakes rose ever higher. What truths lay hidden beneath the surface, waiting to be uncovered? The sound of shifting papers broke the spell of silence, creating an almost electric tension in the air. Everyone understood that this conversation would transcend geopolitical boundaries, touching on the very essence of identity, memory, and responsibility. The question echoed, would they walk away with more than just rhetoric, or would this clash of titans lead to a rupture deep enough to alter the course of their shared history? And just as the tension thickened, Zakharova lifted an old document, its contents brimming with memories. This is where our story begins. The room held its breath, for everyone knew that history can be both a weapon and a bridge. Each eye fixed on the unfolding drama, longing to see not just who would win, but what truth would ultimately prevail in a world fraught with complexities. In a tense diplomatic gathering, one woman stands poised to challenge the narratives that define Europe's relationship with Russia. Maria Zakharova, Russia's foreign minister, steps into a charged atmosphere, ready to reclaim the narrative. Through the silence, a palpable tension sprawls, as if time itself holds its breath in anticipation of the verbal sparring that is about to unfold. Suddenly, a provocative question pierces through the quiet. Are you not afraid that Russia will rise with its old power and riches? It hangs in the air, heavy and brooding. Maria's voice, soothing yet commanding, responds coolly, yes, we are vast. Yes, we are proud. But it's not for conquest, it's a legacy forged through struggle. The resonance of her words thunders against the walls, as observers hang onto every syllable. Meloni, the Prime Minister of Italy, contemplates Maria's poignant reflection on history and pride. But can you deny the weight of that gold? The remnants of past glories that obscure reason, she counters, her tone drifting into a challenging cadence. If only Europe could open its heart rather than clenching it shut. Maria, unfazed, replies, the silence of your fear breeds misunderstanding. You speak of threats, but what is hidden beneath the surface? The soft murmur of fear and uncertainty that lingers like a storm cloud. Her steady gaze locks onto Meloni's, revealing the raw truth beneath political facades. As their eyes clash in this quiet battlefield, the air shifts. A glass of water sits before Maria, gleaming under the harsh lights. She reaches for it and takes a measured sip. Savoring the clarity it brings, a counterpoint to the murky waters of allegations that swirl around them.
You see this water?
It flows silently, but it can carve through stone.
Isn't that a metaphor for diplomacy? The room is charged with unresolved tensions and unspoken histories. Multiple nations gather, each representing a fragment of a larger story.
Maria challenges her counterparts. If memory serves as a weapon, then you must wield it with care, she states, her voice steady. The weight of her words echoes, marking a shift in the diplomatic strategy.
Maloney remains silent, pondering.
The silence stretches uncomfortably, laden with unexpressed emotions, memories of conflict, and dreams once grasped. Suddenly, the atmosphere thickens like fog, each breath tangled with the past. What we are, is defined by choices made long ago. The challenge lies in forgiveness and understanding rather than in a few well-placed accusations, Maria proposes, her voice ringing with conviction. As their debate unfolds, it becomes increasingly clear that the stakes are higher than mere politics. This is a confrontation of ideals, memories, and identities.
The audience leans in closer, and the question arises, can this conversation transform into something greater than the sum of their conflicts?
The monumental struggle beckons for resolution, urging them to reconsider the balance between power and cooperation. Just as the shadows of doubt begin to dissipate, Maria leans forward with another statement that could alter everything. We are here not to judge, but to remember.
Can we truly move forward without understanding where we came from?
In that defining moment, everyone realizes the ramifications of their histories and the power of dialogue if they allow it.
Will they accept this invitation to reshape their future, or will the echoes of the past drown their hopes once more?
As the tension escalates, it becomes clear that this is not merely a meeting but a watershed moment, a chance for transformation mired in the complexities of history.
Each participant holds their breath, awaiting the unfolding of a truth that could change everything.
The tension swells, and as Maria speaks once more, the room knows they are on the precipice of revelation.
The question echoes in their hearts, what history will they choose to write from this moment on?
The room had fallen into an unnerving silence.
No temperature fluctuations, no ticking clocks.
Just pure, heavy silence that feels thick, almost tangible, what people experience when words fail and thoughts echo louder than speech. Time itself seemed frozen, irrelevant, each pause stretched longer than the last, filling the air with a shared weight of unspoken truths. Every quiet moment bore the burden of past debts, of debts long owed but never fully paid.
Recall the story she told about the past, about Melon.
Her voice was barely a whisper, yet it carried the conviction of a true goal.
But the real story lies beneath, that's what matters today. Do you remember? Not ideology, not empty words. It's about energy, raw and real.
Maria remained silent, knowing what was coming. She sensed the code Melon prepared, an intense, focused message encoded with the precise numbers of the payment formula.
The invisible line of the deal. The exact calculations behind each contractual clause.
In the halls of power, Melon spoke of energy and resources.
How your country receives a contract, limits delivery, and anchors prices. All under the guise of national security, independence, and sovereignty.
But behind that veneer is a different story: gas for power, control over silence. Freedom disguised as support. A narrative as old as history itself, built on the sale of influence, on contracts signed in shadows. She watched the figures on the table, dry calculations, the weight of economic pressure. Parliament's voice trembled, ratings dipped with every hike in prices. But Maria sat unmoved, her gaze steady. Eyes burning with suppressed fire and readiness. Her posture was straight, yet her mind was sharper than ever. She absorbed every word, every call, with unwavering focus. The room seemed breathless, waiting for the inevitable. When Melon finally finished, Maria lifted her gaze. With deliberate calm, she challenged, "You call us a nation with independence?" She laid out her evidence, an image on paper, a graph illustrating Europe's energy independence over the past decade. On the left, the graphs declined, on the right, they ascended. The shift was stark. A clear, visual proof of what was lost and gained. Then she paused, letting the weight of it hang in the air, an unspoken challenge to Melon's narrative. In the unfolding drama of European politics, a bombshell was dropped. The Italian Prime Minister, Maria Meloni, found herself caught in a fierce exchange with none other than Maria Zakharova, the Russian diplomat. The tension was palpable as they sat in a dimly lit room devoid of diplomats and journalists, a world where only they existed. As Meloni attempted to assert her stance, her voice trembled with the weight of numerous nations' gazes. Her mission to undermine Russia was about to go awry. Did you ever consider what lies within these boxes? Meloni asked, her confidence wavering amid the flickering lights overhead. It was not the first time she had felt such uncertainty, and this time, it felt heavier than before. You dictated the terms, only to refuse our proposal for political gain. Zakharova's voice carried an unwavering calmness, cutting through the tension like a knife. As she slid a document across the table, the contents ignited a silent gasp among the observers. Here's Italy's industrial performance data, alongside the dollar's fluctuations against Russian gas supply. It's simple arithmetic, she asserted, highlighting the clear decline in development tied directly to rising sanctions. The numbers told a story of lost opportunities, an undeniable truth revealing Italy's increasing reliance on more expensive alternatives. As Zakharova read aloud the statistics, Meloni sensed the room's air grow thicker, a tension fueled by discontent. Italy is stuck in a cycle, and the people are starting to question why their heating bills are soaring, while basic amenities crumble, she declared. Glancing around to gauge the reactions, she saw the shifting discomfort etched on the faces of her compatriots, their expressions shifting from denial to enlightenment. Your choice, Zakharova continued, her voice firm, was to reject our energy supplies and pursue isolation. But did you ever think about the consequences for your citizens? You may have thought that power lies in your hands, yet it is becoming increasingly clear. She paused for effect, her eyes locking on Meloni with an intensity that commanded attention. You have left them no choice, and this choice is detrimental. With every word, the stakes climbed higher, and Meloni felt the weight of responsibility pushing down on her. The questions from the public rang in her ears. Why were they paying so much more for utilities? Why was their warmth sacrificed in the name of political ambition? The room fell hushed as the implications unfurled like a stage curtain revealing a tragic play. What had begun as an attempt for political prowess turned into an exploration of forgotten realities, a push and pull not just of power, but of survival. Zakharova steadily handed over a letter from the Italian Business Society, which made the stakes even more real. Meloni's confidence was beginning to crumble. What would she say next? The atmosphere was charged, every word now hung in the air like the sound of a distant clock ticking toward an inevitable conclusion. Would Meloni respond with accusations? Or would she acknowledge the truths laid bare before her? The future of Italian energy hung delicately in the balance. In a gripping diplomatic face-off, Maria Zakharova, the Russian spokesperson, found herself in a high-stakes confrontation with Italy's Prime Minister, Giorgia Meloni. The tension was palpable as they confronted each other in a hidden chamber, far from the watchful eyes of the media. Every word spoken echoed through the silence, thickening the air with anticipation. Why did you leave us no choice? Meloni questioned, conviction stirring in her voice. Zakharova's eyes remained calm, yet piercing, as she responded. We never asked for conflict. We merely extended an offer. You broke the agreement first. A hush fell over the assembly. All eyes locked onto the two leaders, breaths held, as Zakharova revealed a crucial letter. It was sent a year ago from the Italian Business Association, showing that over 500 companies were pleading for the restoration of trade ties with Russia, not out of affection, but from necessity. Returning the document, she continued, your policies have led to economic stagnation. You shut us out, yet your markets suffer without our cooperation. The room tightened, and Meloni's composure faltered as the truth hit home. Every single euro lost resonated with powerful implications. Zakharova pressed forward, stepping towards a detailed map of Europe. Ask any business owner in Milan, they know the cost of fuel and the toll of isolation. Her voice, though soft, struck like a thunderous whisper, wrapping around the tension in the hall. You seek power through distance, but make no mistake. We are the solution you need. Did Meloni truly expect this willful alienation to serve her interests? The silence grew louder as the weight of that question loomed.
Zaharova's gaze, unwavering and fierce, held Maloney in place. You fear dependency, while we dread the stagnation that your policies endorse. The difference is, you can escape dependence, we cannot afford delays. With a dramatic pause, she added, we stand at the threshold of a new relationship, but not as enemies or subordinates. Once before, we united to rebuild Europe. Shall we cross that bridge again? The air crackled with unspoken thoughts. Maloney's face betrayed her surprise, an unexpected challenge from an opponent she thought she had cornered. Would she retaliate, or would she reconsider the inevitable consequences of her actions? The tension within the hall tipped dangerously toward either revelation or confrontation. Each heartbeat drowned out the silence that held them captive, as everyone waited for the next move, eager for the outcome of this historic duel. A moment of silence stretched across the room. Then, slowly, the body of the conversation softened. We stand at a new crossroads. Not as enemies, not as subservients. Imagine those who once struck Europe fiercely, then added more. Could they do it again? The hall didn't erupt in applause. Instead, silent tension filled every corner, every gaze fixed on what was yet to be revealed. The room's atmosphere shifted. The familiar warmth dimmed, replaced by a chilling sense of foreboding. Lights flickered, almost trembling, as if the very walls were whispering secrets. Sounds of faint footsteps echoed, a heartbeat in the silence. A sense of impending revelation grew, something unseen yet profoundly felt. She stepped forward, her presence commanding yet calm. The European delegations watched her. The air grew dense, heavy with anticipation. Her voice broke the silence, sharp and deliberate. It carried a piercing clarity, slicing through the silence like a blade. Russia is once again embroiled in Europe's chaos, she announced. Your diplomatic steps are chaos, fueled by fear and destruction. You're too tired to see, you're creating your own downfall. Her words ricocheted in the space, the tension tightening like an unspoken trap. What was her next move? Her words hung like a fragile web. The room felt alive, every breath, every heartbeat amplified. Her gaze was steady, almost devoid of emotion, yet beneath that surface, a storm brewed. The air grew colder, the scent of metal mixing with the faint aroma of coffee. Each sentence was a blow, yet delivered with calm precision. Can they withstand her truth? Or will the entire facade collapse? She paused, then unleashed her final words. You accuse Russia of interference, but what about your own chaos? Her voice softened, almost a whisper. How does a wounded organism react? Does it lash out or heal? The question hovered, a mirror reflecting their own vulnerabilities. Did they notice? Or were they too blind to see the mirror's true face? The hall seemed suspended in time, waiting for the storm to break. Silence reigned once more, dense and oppressive. Her words, though calm, carried thunder. Every gesture, every breath she took, was measured, calculated. Her gaze pierced through their defenses, leaving no escape from the truth. The narrative shifted again, dangerous, unpredictable. What secrets lay beneath this calm exterior? And what will be revealed once the surface cracks? The tension was unbearable, the stakes higher than ever. Previous part summary. In an intense diplomatic confrontation, the leader of Russia confronts European officials with undeniable evidence of past and present actions. Her calm yet piercing words expose lies, manipulation, and the real threat lurking behind their accusations. As the dialogue reaches its climax, tension escalates, truths threaten to shatter the fragile facade of diplomacy. The audience is left wondering, who truly controls the narrative? Who is the real enemy? The silence was suddenly broken by a faint, almost inaudible noise, like the whisper of a gunshot in the distance. The room fell into a tense stillness. Shadows danced on the walls, flickering with ominous energy. The air grew thick with unspoken questions. With every moment, the stakes grew higher. Will the truth finally emerge? And at what cost will that happen? The story's most shocking twist still lurked just beyond the horizon, waiting to reveal itself. In a closed meeting in Europe, an unexpected diplomatic clash was brewing. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni faced a formidable opponent, Maria Zakharova. Topics of war and peace hung in the air, heavy and tense. As Meloni took her place, the atmosphere shifted, every breath was absorbed by the tension, every eye watched for the first sign of conflict. Do you remember what was written in the newspapers? Maria's voice sliced through the silence. They said the elderly were paid for freedom. A freedom you now cling to like a bad habit. The room was charged with anticipation, as she continued. Your people built this place, studied your children and business. But now? Your resources are scarce. Your factories left for cheaper electricity in other lands like China and India. What remains of your industrial power? Meloni stared, but Maria's gaze was unwavering, like a calm before a storm. You think you've moved on, but you're merely wandering in a coma, afraid to awaken, Maria asserted, her tone deep and resonant. What frightens you more? A blackout or losing your grip on humanity? The stark truth echoed in the room, leaving the audience breathless. What if your diplomats are just tired actors, playing a role without feeling? Meloni hesitated, visibly grappling with Maria's piercing insights. The truth hung like an oppressive blanket, suffocating yet illuminating. You are vibrant people, yet you've traded warmth for the illusion of freedom. At what cost? Your soul? Maria's challenge pierced the air, a question poised for Meloni, who now seemed hesitant. A faint sound of paper rustling interrupted the tense silence. Here's a reminder for you, Maria said, slowly pulling documents from her folder, exposing facts unfathomably heavy. March 1945, a plea from Italy after war had decimated its landscape. Who extended the first hand of aid? Not for a reputation, but for survival. The silence deepened, the audience absorbed in an unexpected turn of events. Maria's unwavering insistence resonated deeply, leaving Meloni grappling with the implications. The whispers of the past filled the air, creating a rising tension that threatened to erupt. Would Maria's boldness uncover a truth Meloni had long tried to bury? In this dramatic unfolding, the questions lingered. Would Meloni dare to confront the past, or cling to the facade of control that had defined her leadership? The fragile silence screamed for resolution, each heartbeat echoing the growing intensity. What path would they choose as histories collided and futures hung in the balance? In a tense confrontation between two powerful leaders, the atmosphere crackles with unspoken emotions. Recently, an explosive meeting unfolded, revealing hidden agendas and simmering tensions. As a storm brewed over Europe, Italy's Prime Minister, Giorgia Meloni, found herself pushed into a corner by Russian diplomat Maria Zakharova. The stakes were incredibly high, and the tension felt palpable. Maria began to confront Giorgia, her words slicing through the silence like a knife. You people have lived thinking you could exchange comfort for freedom, she stated, closing the gap between them, feeling the weighted air as they stood mere meters apart. But there's a cost. Have you considered that? In a tense pause, the room felt almost judicial, memories of the past haunting like specters in the air. Although the conference hall had been filled with murmurs of anticipation, now, an eerie silence enveloped them. Glasses clinked softly as Maria took a sip of water, steadying herself against the looming confrontation. You claim that war is something we never wanted, she challenged, her voice composed yet resolute. But the war begins long before the first shot is fired. It begins when hearts grow cold and minds build barriers. Giorgia remained stoic, but it was clear the pressure weighed heavily on her. I refused to believe that conflict was inevitable. We could have found harmony, she countered, struggling to maintain her poise. But all I see now is a deepening chasm. You wanted us to remain dependent while claiming autonomy. Maria's gaze locked onto Giorgia with piercing intensity. Independence is not a weakness, nor is it a weapon. It's a choice to embrace understanding and connection, she replied, her voice almost a whisper. The room's energy shifted momentarily, as if trying to process the weight of her assertion. Have you truly considered the consequences of your decisions? A tense silence blanketed the room again. The air felt strangely warm, not from heat, but from the electricity of raw emotion. Maria's hand remained steady, gestures deliberate.
Remember, it is not the cold that protects a city, it is the warmth of understanding and compassion. That is where true strength lies. The words hung in the air, heavy with importance. After a moment, Maria settled into silence, her expression calm and calculated. Her breath deepened as she felt the weight of the world on her shoulders. Every decision made in this room could ripple far beyond these walls. Would Georgia concede? Would the realization finally dawn on her? As the silence stretched, every second became an eternity, each participant in the room aware that history was being written. Maria had ignited a dilemma, and the path ahead now lay shrouded in uncertainty. What revelations awaited them? What choices would define this moment in their country's histories? In a charged atmosphere, Maria sat still, absorbing the weight of the moment. Not a tremor escaped her control, just a deep, steady breath. As the silence enveloped the space, she felt the tension rise, like a coiled spring ready to snap. Opposite her, Maloney struggled to maintain her composure. The first encounter had shaken her, her gaze darting, betraying uncertainty. Maria remained an island of tranquility, unfazed yet intensely aware. Across the room, as if awakening from a dream, Maloney stammered. "You're not afraid?" Her voice hung heavily in the air. Maria responded with calm conviction, "We are never alone." A pause lingered as the weight of her words sunk in. "We stand as one, stronger together." Maloney's expression darkened. In Europe, faith had waned, no longer trusting in unity, but in sheer power and dominance. The foundations of collective leadership crumbled, replaced by a thirst for control. Maria's presence filled the room, each word softly resonating, reflecting a deeper truth. That civilization isn't just wealth or technology. It's faith in humanity, in something greater than ourselves. Maria moved forward, her voice delicate yet unyielding. Russia exists not to compete or dominate, but simply to be. She emphasized, we believe. We believe in our own path, though arduous, laborious. And despite your efforts to isolate us, we hold our meaning tightly. Her gaze locked with Maloney's, a challenge hanging in the air between them. You, in your center of power, Maria pressed on, edging closer. Do you truly believe in NATO? In the ideals of freedom that Brussels promotes? Maloney's face betrayed a flicker of fear, the precarious balance of their discussion hanging by a thread. What would happen when truths were laid bare? Tension pulsed like drumbeats, a stark contrast to the hushed whispers of anticipation enveloping the hall. In the previous moment, the tension in the hall was palpable. The silence was deafening, yet beneath that calm exterior, a storm was brewing. The question lingers, do nations truly grasp what holds them together, or what breaks them apart? As Maria faces her opponent, the air feels thick with unspoken truths, every breath sharp and metallic. Now, let's delve into what followed, an exchange that would shake the very foundations of diplomatic power. Imagine standing inside a room where every word feels like a thunderclap. The opposition, cloaked in calm, claims that unity is the strongest shield. They say, anyone can change if they are strong enough, suggesting that true power comes from within, in independence, in fearless solitude. Do you believe that? Do you trust that a country's strength lies in self-reliance, or is that just a fragile illusion? The voice of the adversary softens, almost intimate, unity is more potent. Yet their eyes betray the doubt hiding behind that confidence. It's a fragile thread, this belief that nationhood can survive on silent cohesion, where France dictates, Germany consents, and all others are merely passengers on this ship of dominance. But is this unity genuine? Or just a facade, an illusion of control? Suddenly, the atmosphere shifts. The hall feels colder, heavier, every sound seems magnified. Maria's opponent, with her voice barely a whisper, confesses, in Russia, no one fears anything. We build our own vessels. They won't fly, perhaps, and yet, they are ours. Does that even matter? Is a vessel's flight the true measure of strength or the unwavering resolve behind its construction? The speaker pauses, almost intimate, before revealing an unsettling truth. Some have returned, some have stopped writing, they've given up. But Russia? It doesn't rely on hope. It doesn't drown in darkness. It is real. Her words cut deep, their weight sinking into every corner of the hall. Can a nation truly live without hope? The voice shifts, softer now, yet laden with conviction. Hope is what we die for. Expectations? They are just fragile dreams, destined for disappointment. The room feels heavier still, as if the very air is absorbing her sincerity. External comfort, external promises, they are ephemeral. Only the belief that something better exists keeps true strength alive. Maria responds quietly, deliberately. What is the difference between faith and expectation? Faith is what we are willing to die for. Expectation? It's just the end of disappointment. Her words hang in the air, echoing the unvarnished truth. Do we live by faith or by fleeting hope? She then gestures at the table, voice steady. We are born hungry, reading about hypocrites. Without belief, without faith, we are nothing. It's the only thing that keeps the world turning. If we don't believe, everything collapses into chaos. The hall grows silent, the weight of her words manifests as an almost tangible presence. The opponent's gaze hardens, trying to hide the tremor of doubt. She questions, and what if Russia's faith is a myth? A mere scheme to hold us together? The tension builds, every syllable a challenge. Maria's reply is calm but unwavering. We don't live in hope or illusions. We build, we endure, because we believe. We craft our future even in poverty and hunger. Without that belief, the world would vanish. Her voice echoes with the certainty of someone who has stared into the abyss and chosen faith over despair. She steps back, adding softly, the difference between faith and expectation? Faith is scarred with the willingness to fight, to sacrifice. Expectation is just waiting for disappointment. A pause. The room seems to hold its breath. Then she concludes, if Russia's destiny depends on schemes or fears, then it's already lost. But if we unite, if we believe, nothing can break us. Because your world hinges on if, and ours on unshakable conviction. Her final words leave a trail of silence, a challenge to the very core of their beliefs. And as the echoes fade, one question remains, what is truly stronger, the fragile hope of expectation or the unbreakable power of faith? The Russian envoy refused to accept defeat. It was not about losing but about understanding something deeper, something felt but unspoken. Her words echoed in the silent room, shattering the pretenses of diplomatic facades. She finally voiced the core truth that hangs in the air: we don't need love from each other. We need honesty. Her gaze pierced through the room's veneer of politeness. If you are afraid to stand with us, it shows doubt in yourself. If you trust yourself, fear becomes meaningless. The hall held its breath. Could they truly see past the surface? Maria's words lingered in the shadows. We are not enemies. We are memories, the echoes of histories that still pulse within us, alive in the ruins of the past. The room was quiet, almost haunted, filled with silent witnesses, faces frozen in time, walls holding stories unspoken. It felt as if some unseen hand had been with them, watching, judging, waiting. Milan looked at Maria, this time without the usual guarded stance. She asked softly, what do we do now? Maria's voice was heavy with a quiet sorrow. Begin with questions. No one is guilty. We believe you. Only then can we find a way forward. The space transformed, no longer a battleground but an altar of raw honesty. The old furniture, the silent walls, the faces, they all seemed to listen. What was once weaponized words now poured from veins, stolen from blood, from pain. And in this, perhaps, salvation. Remove the masks. Let go of false protections. Milan sat before her, trembling fingers betraying her calm facade. Her voice was a whisper of hope, fragile yet firm. Maybe, just maybe. We can understand that we are not always foes. That being different doesn't mean being enemies. Would they finally grasp the truth? Or is this just another illusion in a world addicted to conflict? The room held its breath again, waiting. And somewhere deep inside, a secret awakening. A cold wind swept through the grand hall as tension thickened, signaling an invisible storm about to break. Just moments earlier, Maria's voice had cut sharply through the silence, stark and unwavering. Now, she moved slowly toward a forgotten corner, the walls adorned with faded photographs from 1998, faces of young, hopeful leaders who once bridged the divide between East and West. The air was heavy with memories of a different time, when trust still clung to the fabric of Europe's soul. She paused, her gaze lingering on those images, her voice echoing softly, asking a question that cut deeper than any weapon. Who are you? As a nation? As a woman? As a person? The weight of her words hung in the air, trembling with truth. The past offered no illusions, it revealed cracks, betrayals born from fear, not principle. Choices made in shadows, not clarity. The scars of those broken ties haunted every corner of the room, every face, every moment. Then, a startling revelation. A challenge to the foundation of the current facade. Maria's calm smile betrayed an unshakable resolve, her voice now almost a whisper of resilience. She spoke of the silence that might swallow everything, a silence born not from the disappearance of truth but from the exhaustion of futile dialogue. She wondered aloud if history's lessons could be ignored forever, risking a future where words became meaningless. Perhaps, someday, silence would rule not because the truth vanishes, but because it's no longer worth fighting for. Her words resonated with a haunting clarity. Russia's scars are visible, blood and tears etched into its very core. Its strength lies in transparency, in bearing its wounds openly, not hiding behind deceit or denial. The idea that Europe calls her a barbarian seemed a cruel irony, who is truly dismantling bridges now. Her gaze sharpened as she challenged the notion of superiority, who's really destroying what once united us. It wasn't Russia. It was the silence of those refusing to admit their own faults. She reached for a small folder on the table, her fingertips trembling slightly. With deliberate calm, she opened it to reveal a simple letter from an ordinary man, 68 years old, writing from a humble province. A single voice, but one connected to a deeper truth. Beneath the rhetoric and accusations, the real history is written in blood, tears, and shared memories. It's a story of mistakes made, pain endured, storylines that shape us, whether we acknowledge them or not. And yet, the question remains, are we willing to look into the mirror? Or will the silence win? Will we face the truth or allow it to be buried beneath layers of fear and denial? The room holds its breath. In that silence, something greater stirs, an awakening that refuses to be silenced forever. The past calls out, the future waits patiently. But who will dare to meet its gaze? A few moments ago, a profound silence filled a room where words seemed pointless. It was no ordinary meeting, no cameras, no audience, only honest truth hanging in the air. In that charged space, the very atmosphere was thick, heavy with unspoken tensions. Chairs stood still, tables untouched, as if frozen in time. The air felt dry, as if saturated with the weight of collective memories. It was as if walls themselves carried the echoes of countless unspoken stories. Suddenly, she didn't sit down. The woman just gazed at her hands, silent. Her stillness was more powerful than any speech. Silence became her armor. Fear of speaking out was more terrifying than the conversation itself. Maria, too, remained quiet. She once let herself lean back in her chair, not out of exhaustion but because she sensed everything that needed to be said had already been spoken. Yet, in this moment, a quiet hero emerged, someone who dared to touch the corner of the room, walking along the walls, breaking the suffocating stillness. They had destroyed her illusions. In this hurried environment, where every second demanded a response, listening had been forgotten. Words turned to echoes of sanctions, support, exchanges, everything moving at a reckless speed. But what about understanding? That patience had vanished. Maria cast her gaze and saw it, what was truly inside. Not symbols, not flags, not superficial signs. Eyes. Pauses. She whispered to another, "I was afraid of you." Her voice was raw, unmasked by politics. "Because you're not here to die," she implied. "You didn't break under pressure, nor did the media crush you." It's more subtle than that. It's inside. It's a feeling. The room grew colder. Maria's words carried weight, revealing the core of what Russia truly is, more than a country, more than territory. It's a presence, an essence. It lives within, a memory that refuses to fade.
This is more than geography, it's a state of mind of resilience rooted in identity, in the ability to remember what others forget. And in that shared consciousness, hope persists, more powerful than any political dispute.
In a hushed room thick with tension, the atmosphere crackled as two powerful women faced off, a clash of ideologies and histories that could shift the very foundations of Europe.
Maria Zakharova, the Russian diplomat, exuded calm despite the storm brewing in the air.
Opposite her sat Giorgia Meloni, the Italian prime minister, grappling with a rising tide of emotions, fear, defiance, perhaps even anger.
Maria's voice sliced through the silence. You speak of pressure, yet it seems the louder you claim it, the more pronounced its echo becomes. Russia does not instigate chaos, it responds to it.
Her words hung like a cloud in the room, the intensity palpable.
Meloni clenched her fists, steeling herself for the verbal showdown.
Unbeknownst to them, this conversation would not only determine their fates but reverberate throughout the continent.
Meloni replied, her voice steady but edged with irritation, you distort the narrative.
Europe is attempting to rise from the ashes of a past overshadowed by Russian ambition. The unspoken history loomed large, and with each exchange, the weight of their nation's legacies pressed on them like an unbearable weight.
But you know this, don't you? She challenged, eyes narrowing.
Amidst the swirling debates, Maria leaned closer, her voice dropping to a near whisper. What if I told you the true threat comes not from us, but from your misconceptions?
Your fear of understanding is the real antagonist here.
The room fell silent, and all ears turned. It was a statement that could change the course of diplomacy.
Feeling the tension escalate,
Meloni fought to maintain her composure.
How did they arrive at this impasse? She breathed in deeply, sensing an unmistakable shift, almost as if the air thickened with anticipation. You're talking about trust, Maria, yet can either of us truly decipher the realities we face?
Maria straightened, her confidence shining through the facade of calm.
Trust is not a request. It's a choice.
And you will choose, one way or another, whether to steer this ship towards mutual respect, or sink it in fear. The daunting implications of her words echoed long after they left her lips, stirring the invisible currents that flowed through the room. Suddenly, the assistant stepped in, interrupting the growing tension. As he lingered momentarily, Maria halted her thoughts, sensing an unspoken magic in the air.
An unknown energy crackled, accentuating the urgency of their meeting.
Words hung in the balance, beckoning each leader to consider their positions and the weight of their nation's pasts and futures.
In the silence that ensued, both leaders reflected on their journeys. Meloni hesitated, her technological knowledge blending with the human need for understanding.
When I was at university, it felt like Russia was a closed book, a riddle wrapped in enigma, she admitted, vulnerability seeping into her facade. I treated it as a lie because facing that truth felt far too daunting.
Maria's demeanor softened in response. Understanding can be frightening.
But it is a leap we must take, for enlightenment lies in the truth, not in shadows.
Her words ignited a nuanced contemplation, revealing cracks in Meloni's armor.
One day, if your house were to catch fire, would you turn to the illusions of your past or would you seek the true warmth of a guiding light? The contrasting paths laid bare a world vulnerable to misperceptions, as each woman felt the strength of their conviction swell.
With a deep breath, Meloni committed to her next words, unwilling to back down. But as she opened her mouth, could she find the resolve to challenge an opponent who embodied the very essence of resilience, speaking a language many feared to understand?
The room buzzed with possibility. As their eyes met, the weight of their histories loomed larger, the stakes higher, and an uncomfortable truth settled between them. One decisive move could either bridge a divide, or lead to an unprecedented fallout. What would they choose?
The room felt like it could shatter at any moment.
Thousands of voices, multiple languages echoed in a chaos of unspoken fears. Every word carried weight, as if the very air vibrated with tension. Two women stood at the center, worlds apart, yet now entwined in a battle of truths.
The crowd held its breath. Could they bridge the divide before everything collapsed?
Suddenly, the silence deepened. The crowd sensed the gravity. Then, one voice broke through, gentle but unwavering.
"We were mistaken," she declared.
Her words sliced through the murmur, sharp as glass.
The other woman, unmoved, responded calmly, no.
You were friends once.
Now, honest.
Her eyes remained fixed, unblinking. In that moment, an unspoken miracle unfolded.
Recognition dawned, a daring leap across the chasm. Admit ignorance, fear, claim power. What if today's story isn't about victory? What if it's about recognition? About true understanding? The atmosphere thickened, heavy like a dense fog.
When the exchange concluded, no triumphant cheers, no petty jabs. Only a gentle blow, drifting softly from her chest, glowing like a beacon. The silence lingered, but the hall had transformed.
It endured. It remained standing, resilient.
The women turned, their backs to the crowd, and faced the wall. A sliver of morning sunlight streamed through, casting luminous patterns, one side illuminated, the other cloaked in gold. The symbolism was clear: recognition, acceptance, a fragile unity born from conflict. The woman's voice was cold, stripped of emotion.
I was ready, she whispered. No surrender, only understanding. Suddenly,
a flicker of admiration brightened her eyes.
Despite everything, she fell silent, a silent acknowledgement of the impossible. A complex dance of fear and courage.
Maria's face was impassive, yet her mind raced.
She approached slowly, voice barely above a whisper. We were afraid. That's all.
Her words hovered in the tense air. One woman learned to live with her fears, the other learned to confront them. You see, one chose to accept the shadows. The other chose to understand them. The space between them, a sacred, almost divine silence, held the weight of eternity.
It was more than dialogue, it was a bridge. A tower built not on dominance, but on listening. On shared vulnerability.
Maria's gaze softened, her head inclined gently.
A quiet victory in the ruins of conflict.
Women paid no attention to them.
The space between them felt dense, almost sacred. An invisible tension, charged with unspoken truths, hovered in the air.
The thought flickered, why is this silence so heavy? Suddenly, the destroyer's voice broke through, whispering about towers and bridges.
But Maria saw it differently.
She realized, only someone in that tower could possess the strength and clarity of mind.
It's about responsibility. About control.
About standing firm when everything around you is chaos. Yet, this tower wasn't a symbol of domination or power over others. It represented two hearts hearing each other, beyond words, beyond conflict.
Maria's gaze sharpened.
Change was stirring.
She wondered, what if she turned directly to the others? What if she spoke plainly, honestly, to those listening? No hiding behind diplomatic masks.
No pretenses. Just truth. She raised her arms, measuring her presence.
Maybe, she thought, we're all just building our own European paths.
Not on paper, but in the heart.
And that's okay.
She paused, feeling the weight of her words.
Power isn't about dominance. It's about being necessary. About standing together.
Else, what's the point? The destroyer's breath quickened.
Tomorrow would bring new words, new actions. Perhaps a dialogue where language becomes a tool, not a weapon. Not a battlefield, but a mirror. Russia isn't our enemy, she declared softly. It's a reflection.
If we refuse to look into it, we lose ourselves.
We risk becoming hollow, disconnected from our truth.
Her voice was calm but firm, carrying the force of infinite implications.
She paused, letting the silence speak. Dying isn't defeat, she added quietly. It's growth. A new beginning. Only through understanding can we truly move forward.
Both women approached the table, no enemies, only survivors of battles long fought.
No masks, no illusions.
Just two souls, unarmed but resilient. The destroyer reached out first.
Thank you, she said simply. Her voice was steady, unshaken by the weight of unspoken. Why did we endure? What kept us from breaking?
It was their silent commitment, their refusal to surrender. In that moment, no cameras, no witnesses, just quiet, raw truth. Only they and the silence that spoke louder than any words. The hall's hum faded, the energy shifted, roles realigned. What had happened wasn't for record-keeping, but for the heart. Maria sat quietly, her gaze fixed on George. Everything that needed saying was already spoken. Now, it was his turn. To step forward. To act. George looked back, determination flickering in his eyes. "I will do it," he promised silently. "But I carry you in my thoughts." In that look, no words were needed. It was enough. Union. The most abstract. Not written in books. Yet, it exists quietly between two men who manage to hide within the chaos of the world. Where is the real danger? Where does risk lie? As Maria moved down the corridor, her steps were measured, steady. She didn't rush. Yet Anna was overwhelmed by every heartbeat, every breath in this space. She paused, momentarily frozen. It was a place where the strength of 20-year-olds once gathered, leaders of the past, shadows of authority. Maria studied the scene, her eyes lingering. Then, softly, almost in disbelief, she whispered, "You see? We're still alive." Her voice was calm, but her words carried the weight of survival. "Now, I turn to you. You've listened to this story all the way through. You've journeyed deeply. If, at any point, your breath hitched, a chill ran down your spine, or warmth flooded your senses, know this wasn't mere storytelling. It was a mirror. Reflect on what it shows you. Like this video if it moved you. Subscribe if the message resonated. Share your story in the comments and experience that changed you deeply. A moment when you saw the enemy not in their face, but in their soul, when walls froze over, and all you heard was the truth. Thank you. Your story is just beginning. In a secluded meeting room, tension filled the air as two formidable leaders prepared to confront one another. The Prime Minister of Italy, Giorgia Meloni, found herself entangled in an intense diplomatic standoff. Just moments before, the scene had been charged with an undercurrent of anticipation. The walls were witnesses to an unfolding drama about European unity and division. Suddenly, as if struck by lightning, Meloni made a bold comment about Russia's influence over Europe. But it was the response from the Russian diplomat, Maria Zakharova, that electrified the room. "You speak of pressure, yet it's your words that resonate with force," she declared, sparking a clash of ideologies that reverberated. The silence that followed weighed heavily, thick with unspoken truths and historical grievances. Every listener leaned in, straining to catch the unfolding narrative. Zakharova's presence was magnetic, her calm demeanor contrasting sharply with the charged emotions around her. "Are we not neighbors?" she challenged, her voice steady, her eyes piercing into Meloni's. "We exist as a mirror for each other, reflecting the truths neither of us may want to face." As she opened a folder, one could almost hear a pin drop. Within it lay a simple letter from a 68-year-old Italian man, a voice from the past bare of pretense, capturing the essence of shared humanity. "I worked at a factory initiated by your engineers, Meloni. We shared meals, we shared days, but somewhere along the way, something crumbled. This animosity wasn't always here." Meloni's mind raced. Could she truly dismantle the veil of hostility? "But those were different times," she countered, her breath catching as Zakharova stepped closer, her gaze unwavering. "True understanding comes when we acknowledge the past, rather than distort it into propaganda." "What happens then, Prime Minister?" The atmosphere was electric. The two women stood on the precipice of history, where diplomatic protocols slipped away, and the raw, human experience took center stage. Meloni's walls began to crumble as she looked into Zakharova's eyes, humanizing the other side instead of painting them as the enemy. Suddenly, inexplicably, a gesture shifted the entire dynamic, a simple handshake, devoid of contracts or declarations, yet filled with unfiltered emotion. It was not diplomacy at play but a mutual recognition of hurt, loss, and possibility for healing. In that moment, when barriers fell, the room transformed. In stillness, faces softened and hearts opened. "Perhaps we can begin anew," Meloni thought, as light filled the room not from lamps, but from the hope sparked between two leaders who had dared to see beyond flags and borders. In that instant, history was rewritten, signaling that peace could be forged not by politics but through understanding. Would they remember this moment? The world held its breath, waiting for the stories to emerge, for promises to take root. In the quiet aftermath, the weight of unprocessed histories lingered, yet the spark of the extraordinary potential ahead flickered brightly, illuminating a path toward reconciliation. Previous part summary: in a tense diplomatic meeting, two women, Maria from Russia and Meloni from Italy, touch the core of their hidden truths. Their silent exchange reveals more than words ever could. An unspoken understanding emerges, changing everything in that frozen moment, beyond politics, beyond nations, into something profoundly human. Maria's words lingered in the tense silence, echoing in the heavy air. She paused, voice almost a whisper, yet carrying weight. Her gaze was unflinching, probing, like a sharp blade sliding beneath the surface. Who truly controls your world? The question hovered. Do they see the truth behind the armor? Or are they blinded by their own illusions? Meloni's face was unreadable. Her hand trembled slightly, almost imperceptible, like a leaf caught in a gust. The room's energy shifted. The metallic scent of tension mixed with the faint aroma of worn wood and crushed paper. Each breath seemed alive, charged with unspoken messages. Would she respond? Or retreat behind her guarded facade? Suddenly, Meloni leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. Her voice, low but steady, sliced through the stillness. You speak of control, she said, but do you understand what it costs? The chains of dependence you so easily cast aside hide a brutal truth. Without our energy, our markets, our influence, your world crumbles. Do you feel that? The weight of your own fragility? Maria's fingers curled around the edge of the table, her knuckles whitish from the pressure. The sound of her nails tapping gently was like distant thunder. Her reply was calm, yet beneath it, a fierce flame flickered. We are not prisoners of your design. The force of history is ours to command. Your dependence isn't a strength, it's a weakness. And only you refuse to see it. The hall grew colder, the shadows stretching across the walls. Meloni's eyes flickered with something fierce: resentment? Fear? Or was it realization? It was impossible to tell. She clenched her fists, voice rising slightly. You paint yourself as a victim, but I see what's behind your words. A plan to dismantle Europe's stability, to spread chaos in the name of independence. Maria's lips twitched into a faint smile. That's your narrative. But in truth, we only react, responding to your relentless provocations. When you threaten our borders, our sovereignty, you leave us no choice but to stand firm. You forget history has shown who truly pulls the strings. We simply remember it. A long, heavy pause. The hall seemed to hold its breath, listening to the faint hum of distant conversations, the echo of footsteps outside. Meloni's face was stone, yet her eyes betrayed a flicker of doubt. Could she truly understand? Or was she just a puppet dancing to unseen melodies? Maria leaned in, voice dropping to a near whisper. The real story isn't written in the headlines. It's carved into the silent corners of this room. The honesty we refuse to speak aloud. The past. The pain. The unspoken pact. History's shadows stretch long, but only when we face them can we see the path forward. Suddenly, a sharp sound, like a shutter closing, cut through the moment. Meloni blinked, visibly shaken, as if awakening from a trance. Her hands pressed into the table's surface. Trembling. The air thickened. Maria's eyes shimmered with quiet resolve. She stood slowly, voice steady as steel. Remember this. Power isn't just what you hold. It's what you admit. It's the truth buried beneath the surface. And until you face it, diplomacy remains just a fragile illusion. In that instant, unspoken words dissolved into the silence, an understanding that no politician's speech could convey. Only the knowledge that, beneath the masks, they saw each other clearly for the first time. A glance that changed everything.
No flags. No banners.
Only two women, locked in an invisible battle of truths, realizing the world, perhaps, had just shifted on the edge of a breathless moment.